See, the fundamental shift that has to be brought in the country is to make the states and the local bodies realize that laying of optical fiber cable and giving access to telecom infrastructure is going to be the backbone and is going to give benefits to the state and to the cities. Therefore, it should not be looked as a source of income and revenue generation, but something to be given support of to give access to better quality of telecom connectivity to the larger population in the region.
So let me first welcome Mr. Sunil Kumar Singhal, Advisor Broadband and Policy, TRI. He has more than 24 years of experience in telecommunications and broadcasting sectors. In his present capacity, he is handling the policy and regulatory issues related to the broadband services and interconnection of services. Welcome, Mr. Sunil Kumar Singhal, to the webinar today.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And I also welcome on this session Mr. Balaji, who is the Chief Regulatory and Corporate Affairs Officer, Vodafone Idea Limited. I think Balaji has been in this industry for quite some time. He recently joined in 2018 August Voda India Idea. So in leading the regulatory policy, government relations activities, and Balaji held a very senior leadership levels positions in startup companies, turn around many organizations in the Tata groups and AT&T, Ericsson, Sony. I think currently is been very actively working with Vodafone Idea Limited.
Thank you.
Let me welcome Mr. Rahul Watts, Chief Regulatory Officer, Airtel. Rahul has a lot of expertise in this regulatory policy and the licensing spectrum with more than 24 years of his experience. And I was told that he is responsible for almost getting 30 telecom licenses in last 12 years, which is not easy. So Rahul also will bring a lot of insights around this regulatory framework reformations required. Rahul, welcome to this session.
Thank you, Mr. Rahul.
We have Ms. Vishaka Saigal joining us from Jio, President and Head Strategic Initiatives, Regulatory Policy and Research at Jio. She comes with a very rich experience in ICT communication technologies and a business advisory professional with extensive consulting experience across telecom, technology, education and media sectors. Vishaka, welcome you to the session as well.
Thank you, Mr. Rao, for the warm welcome. Thank you so much.
Introduced, I think, Mr. Ankur Jain, just joined, so MD Media Tech. Ankur is heading this Media Tech business and responsible for Pan-India operations. And Media Tech is a leading Taiwanese-based global fabless semiconductor company that powers more than 1.5 billion of devices per year.
For rollout of the networks, still there are administrative bottlenecks. I agree. But what I want to emphasize is that this problem is not unique to India. World over, policymakers, regulators, and industry participants are working together to address this crucial issue. However, you are right that this issue becomes more highlighted in India because we don't have other infrastructures like common duct infrastructure, which is there in other parts of the world.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rao. I think the government and the regulator and the industry players are in continuous dialogue to ensure that Indian citizens can get the latest technologies and latest innovations are introduced in the services that we offer. So whether it is blockchain technologies or IoT technologies, a lot of proactive steps have been taken. In fact, with the support of regulator TRAI, the industry has done a world-first implementation of blockchain-based UCC services.
So let me start by saying that the telecom service providers are already bound by very strict licensing conditions, which require us to ensure consumer privacy and also storage, of the personal information of our customers. However, I will urge that the issue of privacy and security of personal data is not just limited to the TSPs. In fact, the issue is more critical for all sectors and various services. Because we really need to become independent in our manufacturing, in our capabilities in India. So, in that aspect, MediaTek is also cooperating with several Indian players and Indian OEMs.
Yes, thanks to the collective efforts of the government, regulator, and industry, we have made rapid strides in technology evolution from older technologies to 4G. Today, we've seen and witnessed how 4G has transformed and impacted the lives of millions of Indians in India in a very, very positive manner in a very, very short span of time. Today, all of us are gearing for the big 5G deal.
Great talking to you, all of you. Thanks for joining all of you to be on this panel today. Thank you so much.
Hello and welcome to the fourth episode of the 25 Years of Mobility series, Desh Ke Digital Udaan. We are celebrating 25 years of mobility in India, and today's episode is titled Network Affordability, Trendsetter Forecast Business and Service Transformation. 2020 marks the completion of 25 years of mobile communications in India. STL and Nokia are also celebrating the completion of 25 years in the Indian telecom and technology market. This is a huge moment for the industry, and that is what the series is all about. The objective of this series is not only to celebrate the last 25 years, rather, it is also to discuss the roadmap and possibilities for the next 25 years and how India is going to become a world leader in the areas of telecommunications and technology.
We're bringing 5G to everyone across mobile, automotive, IoT, in the home, and beyond. Introducing MediaTek Dimensity. MediaTek Dimensity is at the forefront of powering the 5G revolution. It's about what we can achieve when barriers between devices disappear and connectivity becomes seamless and instantaneous. It will change market, industries, and our everyday. Through Dimensity, we're spurring product, app, and service innovations that will enable the true possibilities of 5G connectivity. When you see Dimensity, know that MediaTek has built an unrivaled mix of technologies. The industry's fastest 5G connectivity, super fast processors, and incredible gaming. Exciting multimedia, the industry's most powerful AI cores, and impressive imaging. With MediaTek Dimensity, expect incredible.
To start the proceedings, I invite Lieutenant General S.P. Kochhar, DG, COAI, to deliver the welcome address. Dr. Kochhar is a decorated military veteran and leader par excellence. He retired as the Chief Signal Officer of the Indian Army. He was also the first CEO of Telecom Sector Skill Council. His interests include using new age technologies like blockchain, IoT, big data, DSP, and artificial intelligence, including AR and VR, for proving optimum innovative solutions in the Indian context. He also has keen interests in 5G and its optimum utilization. Dr. Kochhar.
In this year, 2020, we complete 25 successful years of mobile telephony and digital services in India. In these 25 years, the telecom networks in India have witnessed tremendous transformation from 2G to 4G. And now we are headed towards 5G. The Indian telcos were the pioneers in the outsourcing model, which has defined a new trend in the telecom networks across the globe. Driven by the outsourcing model, in which the Indian providers outsource the networks, the passive infrastructure, that is the towers and the sites, IT infrastructure, VAS infrastructure, and current consideration in sharing the active infrastructure and spectra, the telecom networks in today are state-of-the-art and some of the most robust in the world. With 4G networks across India and continued deployment of fiber to the home, telecom services have become a mainstay of many sectors, and most of them have incorporated these into their core activities, thus reducing the cost of physical infrastructure, increasing reach, and transforming the delivery of services. Ladies and gentlemen, I take this opportunity to welcome you all to the fourth episode themed Network Affordability, Trendsetter for Cost, Business and Service Transformation of a webinar series Desh Ki Digital Udaan. Operators are increasingly seeking ways to grow revenue and cut costs in a high growth environment, which is made more complicated by the demanding requirements of new services, that is high speed, low latency and ultra reliability. Operators therefore need to evolve their networks using innovations such as virtual RAN, edge computing and network automation to meet the demands of the 4G or 5G era. Today, operators are looking at innovative business models and moving towards multi-vendor network automation and monitoring services. Currently, technology advancements such as cloud, AI, network orchestration, and modernization are all contributing to more efficient network functioning. To know this more and understand from the operators' CTOs, it is my honor to welcome our guests for this episode. Shri Ashutosh Sharma, Secretary at Department of Science and Technology, Government of India, Mr. Randeep Sekhon, CTO Bharti Airtel, Mr. Vishant Vora, CTO Vodafone Idea, Mr. Shyam Mardikar, CTO RelianceJio Infocomm, Mr. Sandeep Dhingra, CTO Network Services Business STL, Mr. Vikram Anand, Senior Director Sales, Ciena Communications, Mr. David Stokes, Senior Manager Solutions Marketing, Ribbon Communication, and of course Mr. Amit Marwah, Head of Marketing and Corporate Affairs, Nokia, will be our moderator for this panel. In this panel, the panelists will discuss about the convergence of technologies, communication and computing interplay, service delivery, network infrastructure, its compatibility, complexity and affordability, along with measures of how to decrease OPEX and CAPEX and further increase efficiency and investments in telecom networks. So ladies and gentlemen, sit back and enjoy the show. Thank you.
Beam, a seed, the one that shoots up, springs. Life that kindles, never dies out. Arrow, a goal that inspires. Future that intrigues, amazes. In a new, fresh, invigorated form to take the giant stride. STL, Beyond Tomorrow.
The ways that we make things have changed overnight. Once wired and tethered, we're now wireless and light, and at least twice as smart with our digital twins. For in this new making, the agile one wins. So when markets or customers say, "I've changed my mind," we bend like a yogi, rethink and refine. We act on our insights and make a new line. The brain is the network, so nimble, so smart, secure and reliable. In essence, the heart that fuels the new making and all it can be. from shipping to logistics to factory to sea. Go all-where. Networking solutions for the new age of industry, like manufacturing. Nokia.
Thank you, Dr. Kochhar. Before we move ahead with the program, I'll take a moment to announce the dates for India Mobile Congress 2020. IMC 2020 will be held virtually from 8 December to 10th December, and the partnerships are now available to be secured. You can contact info@indiamobilecongress.com for more details. We have a number of industry experts with us today who will take this discussion forward. And I would like to welcome Professor Shri Ashutosh Sharma, Secretary, Department of Science and Technology, Government of India, to deliver the keynote. At DST, Professor Sharma has helped initiate several new programs related to infrastructure and human capacity building, innovation and startups, R&D in advanced manufacturing, waste processing, clean energy and cyber physical systems, industry academia cooperation, science communication, women scientists, and major international collaborations in the areas of priority for the nation.
I'm delighted that COAI has put together this brilliant program, this conference on 25 years of mobility in India. Desh ki Digital Udaan, the unprecedented development and progress across the nation brought about through digital services is gearing to contribute $1 trillion out of a $5 trillion economy, which also creates countless jobs. The sheer transformation which I'm witnessing in India through the digital spread and the resulting empowerment of Indians is genuinely remarkable. And there's one story I would like to share. In terms of promising a digital economy, India is going to become a prominent name to reckon with in the global map. And I'm really delighted to be part of this very significant milestone in Indian telecom industry, making 25 years of mobile telephony in the country. We have a long way in the field of science and technology. It's not just a vertical anymore, but it's really horizontal that cuts across every sector, every activity that we undertake. Now, emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, Internet of Everything, and 5G are significantly impacting the processes and aspirations in critical sectors such as manufacturing, education, healthcare, agriculture, financial, and social activities. Development of these technologies have the potential to disrupt and change the working of all these sectors, which will lead to an innovative wave and add indeed immense value. The future is coming at us at faster and faster rate. The future is all about convergence of technologies. What are these technologies and what does the convergence mean? Well, it's all about smart materials, stimuli responsive materials, working together with communication technologies, data transmission, data handling, perception through sensors, data analytics, making autonomous decisions based on data and information, using artificial intelligence, machine learning, and finally making autonomous actions through actuators. So it is everything that we are going to be doing in future is a combination, an integration, a convergence of these technologies from communication to computation to perception to action. This convergence of technologies is impacting the missions which are launched by Department of Science and Technology. One such mission is on cyber physical systems, which was launched last year at an investment of 3,660 crores, which is setting up now more than 20 hubs across the country. Several of them actually focus on computing and communication and their interplay through artificial intelligence, machine learning, IoT. Of course, and communication is no longer confined to person-to-person communication. So that's a game changer because we need speed, we certainly need bandwidth, we need low latency, we need a stability of communication. Imagine a surgeon which is guiding a surgery through communication, through robotics. So it's clear that we are entering an era of communication which is unprecedented, which is qualitatively different from what we have been doing in the past. So visual communication, of course, becomes very important. So that requires downloading, communicating very large chunks of data with speed and scale. Industry 4.0 is a good example of machine-to-machine communication and communication between things. And so Industry 4.0 would certainly be powered by the twins of communication and computing. With the 5G and realization of the fourth industrial revolution, service delivery and operations are getting increasingly complex. We need to utilize machine learning and leverage intent-driven, closed-loop autonomous operations, driving business agility and offer differentiated customer experience. Additionally, with the advent of upcoming technologies, the market and enterprise customers are also expected to transform. They are also expected to be a five-fold increase in economic value from India's digital transformation by 2025. And this would create a rapidly growing market for a host of digital services, platforms, applications, content, and solutions. This represents an attractive opportunity for global and local businesses. So this is all about being local. Often the science that drives these transformations is global, but the technology that we use finally has local aspirations, needs, and priorities in it. It's going to drive startups and platform-based innovators who would be investing in emerging technologies. Thinking about the startups and innovation, Department of Science and Technology has been a major part of this evolving journey. It has done in the last 5 years for incubators and startups more than what was done in the previous 50 years. There are now 150 incubators with 4,000 technology companies which are operating. They are bringing in value for the high tech. Several of these startups are focused on computing, artificial intelligence, communication, and clearly communication of the future is driven more by software, or at least equally by software as with hardware, with algorithms. So all of that is happening with great speed and with great intent and great scale. New programs on technology fusion and application research is an example of the program launched recently by the Department of Science and Technology. There are ever-increasing technological requirements of the society, and considering the international trends of next-gen technologies, this program will boost research for fusion, convergence, and application of emerging technologies such as quantum-enabled science and technology, imaging spectroscopy, epidemiological data analytics, and Indian heritage in digital space. These are very interesting things happening all around. For example, looking at heritage in digital space, it's about maintaining our heritage in architecture, in monuments, in old paintings like in Ajanta, reconstructing them, and also very interesting new technologies wherein one can digitally scan a monument, then create a 3D replica of it by printing, and then be able to take a virtual walk in it. So the virtual reality, mixed reality, augmented reality are some other applications which are going to drive the sector and the need for communication. Another interesting example is the rise of quantum technologies. This is a new program, a new national mission which is in the offing in a short time. It was announced in the last budget speech. It would foresee an investment of rupees 8,000 crores, and this will again be a transformative mission because it would include not just quantum computing, but more importantly, to my mind, quantum communication, quantum cryptography, quantum algorithms, quantum devices, quantum sensors of all kinds, which are going to become increasingly important in the years and decades and indeed the centuries to come. So what we are looking at here is all the future of humanity. And this, we're talking about the future of humanity even after COVID-19 has disappeared from the margins of history books. We would still have these overarching challenges of sustainable development, of healthcare for all, for climate change, the rise of antimicrobial resistance, and these are huge challenges together with the rise of intelligent machines. And if you really look carefully, communication is an integral part of addressing these challenges in a way that leads to sustainable development. Reaching the last mile, reaching the last person for digital delivery of health or healthcare. Certainly, one couldn't envisage that in the absence of right, effective communication. So whether it's about agriculture, it's about informing our farmers, it's informing our fishermen about the right opportunities in their trade, communication would continue to play ever greater role in that. Like I said, we have to be fully ready for the change, the opportunities and challenges that the future brings. I wish the organizers a huge success and congratulate them for putting together such a delightful event, such a useful event, which is appropriate and very topical and very timely. I am sure the next 25 years in India will be a global game changer. Now, game changer, of course, is a little bit of a cliche, but what you would like to say is that, look, we used to talk about leapfrogging. Even leapfrogging is not an option anymore. What we ought to do is pole vaulting. And so be totally ready for disruptive changes and in fact be part of those changes, not just part of the problem, but part of the solution. So thank you very much again. All the best going forward in the future.
Thank you, Professor Sharma. That was insightful. Now let's move on to the panel discussion with our industry experts. The panel will be moderated by Mr. Amit Marwah, Head of Marketing and Corporate Affairs, Nokia. Before Nokia, Mr. Marwah held senior positions in Huawei and Motorola. At Huawei, he held the position of Director, Core Networks Global Solution Sales Support, while at Motorola, he contributed as a Senior Manager. Amit also served as Head, Converged Core, Solution Sales Management and Chief Technology Officer for Nokia between 2005 and 2009. Mr. Marwah, over to you.
Hello everyone, and a very warm welcome to this discussion that we're going to have on network affordability. The last 25 years as a journey in India has been phenomenal. We all are aware, from no subscribers to almost 1.1 billion subscribers, the second highest number of users in the world, the highest data consuming market in the world, the tele-density at urban level reaching 150%, rural tele-density also going up substantially to 60%. I think we've had a phenomenal journey in the last 25 years of taking mobility to where it is, and thanks to the networks that we have set up. But not only have we reached these milestones, I think the bigger thing has been that in India, we have been trendsetters in a number of new initiative, new business models. And just to give you an example of few of them, managed services as a business model was something which was conceived and made successful in India. Managed capacity as a model, extremely successful in India. Infra sharing, tower companies and tower co set up as a big business case and a successful one. Again, an innovation out of India. And more recently, I think use cases like voice over LTE having the largest number of deployments, cloud deployments in India having probably superseded or one of the largest in the world. So we have taken initiative and we have done things in our networks which are trendsetters for the world. And all of us have been part of this journey from the TSPs to the entire ecosystem in order to be able to contribute, building the networks up to now for 4G. But I think at the core of all this has been efficiency. Efficiency that we have tried to extract of our networks, the CSPs, all the operators have done in order to create the best business case, the best amount of juice that can be extracted out of every part of the network. And I think we've had an extremely focused journey around this. Trying to create the best possible capex and opex models in order to run telecom networks in the world. This discussion that we have is all about network affordability. Yes, we have done a lot in the past, but there is lots more that can be done and will be done in the future with technologies like artificial intelligence, cloud, and so many things as networks transform to 5G. And I think it's our chance again, as in India, to lead the world in making a transformation and being the trendsetters once again. And for this, I have an extremely, I would say, the best panel that anybody could dream of, with not only the trendsetters themselves, the decision makers, but people who have been part of this journey for a long time and have contributed and are sitting on the driver's seats. So without losing any time, let me introduce the panel to us. First, Mr. Vishant Vora, CTO for Vodafone Idea, now branded as V. A member of the national leadership team, Vishant is responsible for network, IT operations, and overall technology strategy. Prior to his present role, Vishant was Director of Technology at Vodafone India, where he spearheaded the technology and network infrastructure for the company. A career telecom professional, Vishant has spent more than 2.5 decades in telecom technology, building expertise in 3 continents, USA, Europe, and Asia. He graduated as a Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering from the University of Michigan. Welcome, Vishant. The second panelist I have, again, needs no introduction, Mr. Randeep, the CTO of Bharti Airtel. With his unique mix of business, leadership, experience, and deep technology understanding to drive business success, Randeep is transforming the position of mobile operators from access providers to digital lifestyle providers, delivering value to its customers via a customer-first and digital-first strategy. He has a unique mix of business leadership experience and a deep technology understanding to drive business success and turnaround. His experience in the technology leadership roles have enabled him to leverage technology and digital-first approach for the enterprise value generation. Welcome, Randeep, to this panel. The third panelist, again, needs little introduction, and a dear friend, Shyam, Mardikar, CTO of RelianceJio Infocomm. Technology, thought leadership, more than 24 years in telecommunication industry, across networks and IT domains in strategy, planning, engineering, and operations across India and Europe. Telecom evangelist with an inclusive outlook towards new telecom DNA, like this: devices, network, and applications. That's the DNA. Instrumental in creating a flatter, closer to the customer service awareness network. Telecom strategist with an innovative and out-of-the-box process to formulate architecture and technology plans, options around spectrum, network evolution, virtualization, and customer experience. Very rich in his experience. Welcome, Shyam, to the panel. We also have in the panel with us Mr. Vikram S. Anand, Senior Director, Sales, Ciena Communication. Vikram is a Senior Director and in his role is responsible for managing developing Ciena's business across Western and Southern India, including sales and business development. Anand joined Ciena in May 2020 from VMware, where he was leading the telco and media business vertical in India. Prior to VMware, Anand was also working in leadership roles in companies like Cisco and Ericsson, and has had a rich experience with telecom IT leaders like Alcatel and Siemens. We also have with us one of the panelists, Mr. Sandeep Dhingra, CTO Network Services, for STL, which is Sterlite. Sandeep is focused on driving innovation to enable faster growth in rapidly changing architecture with SDN, NFV, cloud, IoT, and 5G. Sandeep has held leadership positions in Cisco Systems, IBM, and Huawei. He has several US patents to his name for innovation in health, architecture, and analytics. And last but not the least, we have with us Mr. David Stokes, Senior Manager, Solution Marketing, Ribbon Communication. David is a Senior Manager, Solution Marketing at Ribbon, where he's focused in Ribbon's package transport portfolio and package-enabled solutions for 4G and 5G mobile transport, mission-critical, industrial and defense, homeland security, and government. He is an experienced professional with extensive telecommunication knowledge gained from working across all infrastructure technologies like SDH, fixed, wireless, IP, MPLS, carrier Ethernet, PON, optical, etc. David has also roles in development in system engineering, product strategy, and product management at a number of companies, including Marconi, Fujitsu, Lucent Technologies, and Nokia. So with that, we have the panel with us, and let's start the discussion. I will ask, Randeep, maybe I'll ask the first question to you. We know that, with this transformation of the network, especially on the path to 5G, things are getting much more complex in terms of how the networks are going to evolve. So at Airtel, how, in spite of all this complexity, are you able, or are you thinking that you'll be able to deliver the cost-effective networks in the future? Your thoughts?
Yeah, Amit, and I think a very relevant question. While the technology is becoming more complex, there are also tools which are getting available which were not there when we were rolling out probably 4G in early times, or definitely previous Gs, 2s, and 3Gs. So I would say that if we talk about cloud is one technology which makes it, if it is an orchestrated cloud, for example, it will be making the service deployment much easier, scalability much faster. So I think tools like cloud, tools like AI ML, where you can use them for faster planning, and then automations like where we can have zero touch installation, self-healing networks. These are all possibilities which have come through with these new technologies, which makes, while the network's very complex, but also makes the life more automated, which means if you can invest in these in the right time, they will help us deliver and manage. It is not just deploy, it is also manage these networks for customer experience in much more, I would say, automated way. At Airtel, we know 5G is the next way which is coming. It's the next G. It will bring its own set of complexity, not only in RAN, because generally we people talk about 5G as a RAN technology. It is not. It is an ecosystem which only touches RAN as well as transport network, as well as core network, and of course the services. So in 5G, the way Airtel is doing is we are preparing our networks on a core and transport side for automated deployment and automated readiness of network to get ready for 5G. On infra side, we are working, seeing how we can make infra, especially the RAN part. We'll have MIMO technology deployed for 5G. How we can work with our partners to make these less power guzzling, less space, and more, you can say, efficient to deliver this technology. That said, I think it will be delivered through a partner ecosystems from the supplier partners, from infra partners, and of course the telcos. That will be the challenge for us delivering it. I would say this also presents us a big opportunity of bringing in a Make in India story here, where we can make sure all these technologies get made in India, not only for Indian consumption, but also for the global consumption. That also will bring the cost down. I mean, since the custom duties have been imposed on on the import from a certain set of countries, but all what is manufactured here does not have the custom duties, makes even Airtel's products very cheaper. Like our partners like Nokia, Ericsson have factories here, and that gives us a benefit. Ciena has factory here, that gives us a benefit. So I would say automation, cloud, made in India, and a close working of all partner ecosystem will ensure that the 5G in India is not only fast, it delivers the customer experience, it delivers the promise, but also is not very heavy on capex and opex. So this is what probably at this stage I would like to comment.
Thank you, Randeep. And you very rightly said, have the right tools to deliver and manage the networks of the future. Let me move to you, Shyam. So Randeep did talk about what is required and how and what are going to be done. What are your thoughts on how costs efficiencies can be delivered to improve margins in the networks of the future? What all needs to be done with the network, which can directly correlate and go into the bottom line of companies like yours and others in order to create the networks more efficient?
Thanks, Amit. Just building on what is being discussed, I think one of the core changes which we all can very well understand and empathize as an industry is that going digital is bringing an unprecedented increase in both complexity as well as scale. Now, as far as harnessing the economies of scale are concerned, I think we at India are really, really good at it. I mean, we know what scale is. We have handled scale. You alluded to more than 1 billion customers, and I think we have built networks to handle these more than 1 billion customers very, very efficiently and effectively. But what I believe changes this time with 5G coming in is the shape and form of the whole product suite, the portfolio, if I may call it. This has become so orthogonal that the service sets are totally independent of each other. What an enterprise needs versus what a machine needs versus what a retail customer needs versus what somebody at home needs. I think, and there are then multiple vectors. There is a vector of latency, there is a vector of bandwidth, there is a vector of the type of content which we're using, the frequency of transaction, security. So I think what becomes very, very important at the design stage is the ability to understand the scope and span of each of these service sets, and then kind of design a network which delivers near optimum level, not only from an efficiency and utilization perspective, but also from the topology, architecture, and management perspective that kind of drives it. The other big thing which is going to happen is now with these kind of scale and this kind of complexity, it will actually become totally infeasible to start managing and running these networks in the old ways which we've been used to. And when I say old ways, I do not mean a manual or an automated way. I mean the way in which the network components adapt themselves or move themselves according to the way the service suites or the demand factors are moving. And this is only possible when the underlying systems are aware of what is happening at the service plane. Underlying systems are continuously in real time exchanging data with each other, processing that data so that they can build some kind of intelligence on the fly and then deliver the right set and right kind. And when I said right set and right kind, the underlying simplicity as well as the economics of the service also gets built into it. So how to create, deliver, and service the customer, man, machine, enterprise, whatever the set of customers are, in the best and the most economical way possible is something which will come out of this tenet of what we call as programmable network. And unless this tenet is built into the end-to-end ecosystem, right from the software layer, which is self-aware, but also to the infrastructure layer, which continuously keeps on updating the kind of services, the kind of loads that are undergoing, the kind of services which are handed over to the customer. Unless this all gets stitched together, I think our ability to run, deploy, and create a network of the future will be very, very challenged. So programmability, I think, becomes one of the biggest tenet. Differentiation of service suites according to the demand and supply becomes a big capability, and the awareness and evolving delivery on the real time becomes a big cost factor optimization which can come into the place. The only other thing which I would like to add going forward in the digital world, 5G plus as we call it, is Randeep rightly alluded, we are not talking about a new radio here. We are talking about a bigger ecosystem wherein the concept of the first mile and the last mile, the hierarchy of the old networks is all kind of collapsing. And once this network cements itself in the ecosystem, where every piece of connectivity is just a single hop from core to the device, it automatically tries and create the kind of economic value which makes it so much more worthwhile to go digital and to service billions of customers and hundreds and thousands of service suites.
Thanks, Shyam. And if I can, just summarize what you said was that complexity and scale is our challenges, but designing the right network, which is programmable and simple, will help create the economies for the future. I think that summarizes what you said and all extremely rightly. Moving on to you, Vishant. A similar question, but I would like you to stress more on the challenges that you see or what you have been facing. You have been building some of the, the biggest cloud networks already in India and doing huge, massive MIMO, etc. deployment. So some challenges you have faced and some you think are going to be coming as the networks transform in the future.
Thank you, Amit. First of all, I would like to echo what Randeep and Shyam have already said, that 5G is not just not like the other G upgrades. This is a completely different architecture, rethought end to end, including all different domains of the network. So what we have been doing, Amit, is actually, we looked at this a couple of years ago as we were getting ready to merge our two networks between Vodafone and Idea, and we said that let's go on a journey. So at the end of the journey, we are ready for that world of tomorrow. Well, we will have a platform which is very much like 5G, even if 5G is not officially adopted, but it will have many capabilities of a 5G network. And what will be the key success factors required to get there? And other than just reducing prices and cost, which is always important in India, what we also said is, it's going to be incredibly important to build those capabilities to capture new business opportunities. And so the big challenge is not only reducing cost and achieving scale, but it is also about creating those capabilities. So some of the challenges that we have encountered on this journey and that I see going forward is that as we try to cloudify our network more and more, it is very important that we try to make it universal. So that cloud should be able to host as many different network applications, IT applications, third-party applications as possible. So therefore, we are able to spread the cost of that investment across multiple different things. And at the same time, because now we'll have multiple applications sitting on the same cloud, you can do things in terms of improving experience, in terms of creating new capabilities, new services which are differentiated in the market and which are more personalized for whether it is an enterprise client or a consumer client. So in order to do that, it is very important that as you start to decouple or disaggregate that cloud, you really build strong capabilities for cloud engineering within your organization. Second, I think you need to start understanding that the network is now going to behave very much like the IT estate has been behaving for the last 20 plus years. And that means really starting to look at that network like the way it has been looked at in the IT world. And that is a very different perspective than the traditional perspective that we had, where we used to buy monolithic systems from the network equipment providers and just deploy them, put a box in. It was specialized in creating one service, and I did it really well. And you didn't really need to open the box too much and look inside. Well, as you do this cloud, universal cloud, as I call it, it's very important that you have proper engineering skills in-house. The other thing is, if you're going to build all of these capabilities, that you be able to orchestrate this cloud, which is going to be across the country. We have 90 locations across the country so far, and you need to orchestrate that whole thing as a single cloud. So instead of 90 different locations being managed independently and being orchestrated differently, we need to orchestrate it as a single unit. And that requires quite a bit of rethinking in the way not only we design networks, and not only the way we build capabilities, but also how we manage it, how we operate it. So your entire operating model within the company has to be rethought. And I think it needs to get a bit more standardized than what it has traditionally been in the industry. So that is another big change that one needs to make in this in the operating model. Then the third part is, as you create these capabilities, you need to make sure that you have that independent integration capabilities for different kinds of services. So the system integration part of this new cloud becomes very, very important. And once we build those skills, you can actually create lots of new services, which I think are going to be critical for India, because India does not only need cheap connectivity. India needs our industry, telcos, really to become the base platform, the horizontal industry, instead of the vertical, on which the entire digital India will be built. And in order to do that, you really need to build very strong SI capabilities, either with yourself or in partnership with someone else. So those are the key success factors that I see are requisite for success in future.
Thanks, Vishant. And I think very rightly said, creating the capabilities, having a universal network approach, getting the skills in place who can build that, and using SI in order to innovate what the users really require in terms of different business cases. All very, very relevant. Moving on, Sandeep, I would like your perspective, because we also talked about how these network transformation will happen at the infra level and even the transport layers. What are your thoughts as a vendor in terms of what all is being done in order to create and what we can provide as vendors to the operators in the future?
I echo the comments that all the CTOs made. I think one thing that I would say is all of this needs to be looked at holistically. What I mean is have to look at the infrastructure piece, the physical layer piece, and to look at the architecture model, which we all talked about, whether it is virtualization, SDN, NFP, or cloud native capabilities, or distributed cloud array. So that's the architecture model that I see. And the third is the operating model, which is DevOps and stuff like that. But let's focus on the physical infrastructure, right? So I also believe that whether it is affordability, whether it is longevity, building the right infrastructure, building the plants and building it right is the best strategy longer term. Let's say I come from a fiber company background, fiberization is the key. We still have very low level of fiberization for 5G towers in North towers in India, much lesser, like 16 to 20% compared to US, probably 70 to 80%. That something needs to happen in there. But I would also the physical space, infrastructure space is that in terms of the deployment, that's something that generally we are lacking. So we kind of digitized and automated model of deployment, whether it is wired or wireless, right? The third piece that I see that is what we are looking at is the convergence of infrastructure. So let's say from STL perspective, so convergence is a big thing happening. But from STL perspective, we talk about convergence between wired and wireless, and then convergence between hardware and software, from silicon to software, and the third is connectivity and compute. Think of edge compute. So if you do all these things from infrastructure convergence, infrastructure fiberization, make sure you have efficiencies in deployment. I think those are the levers that are essential to support the upper layer architecture model and operating model. So that is something that I would we need. And then architecture model, unfortunately, I also think that we have to think of this holistically. For example, automation will not happen if cloudification doesn't happen. So if cloudification will not happen if, let's say, cloudification, I talk about say containers, microservices, and orchestration. It is not going to happen if we don't have virtualization underneath or NFP underneath, right? And all of this is not going to work very well if we do not implement DevOps or DevNetOps or DevOps. So point I'm making is that on the architecture model layer also an operating model are linked together and needs to be looked at the holistic framework, and the issue calculation needs to be taken into a longer term consideration, as well as what Mr. Vora said in terms of new revenue opportunities. So this is how I believe from infrastructure, architecture, and operations perspective we need to.
Thank you, Sandeep. Your audio is not very clear, so maybe either you have to rejoin or just check, for the next question. Yeah. So anyway, moving on to Vikram, to you. And I know from Ciena perspective, you guys are, one of the things that will also change with this transition is the customers. For instance, enterprise customers will become more and more important and play a much bigger role, whether it's the enterprise through the CSPs or directly. And they will have different expectations from. So your thoughts on how this vertical industry partnerships, which will become part of this whole transition journey, what steps do we need to take from the network perspective in order to kind of move into a right direction there?
Sure, Amit. So I think, before we get into what are the steps taken on the vertical, with the vertical industry partners, I think let's demystify what the enterprise requirements really are, right? The enterprise requirements, when the enterprise CIO is really building applications for vertical specific use cases today, they are aware that 5G can actually bring in a lot more value, what they can take it back to their LOBs, right? And that's primarily because of the sheer nature of low latency and highly flexible services that 5G can bring, right? Now, what are these verticals which would really look at these kind of services? That would primarily be connected manufacturing. It would be automobile. It could be, mining, energy and utilities, right? And education and retail and BFSI, right? So these would really be the verticals. And, so what could telcos perhaps do, to address these complexities when they make these partnerships? I think they're broadly around 3 or 4 technical aspects and 1 or 2 softer aspects, right? From a technical side, I think, as rightly mentioned by Randeep and Vishant, it's, automation would be very, very critical, right? Because network slicing and multi-access edge computing would be the foundation for these new services, right? And automation would be very critical from a threefold aspect. A, the dynamic slice would require to be provisioned, policies to be tweaked for a particular industry vertical or for even a particular customer, right? The second thing is it will give the flexibility for a telco to adopt the hyperscaler model of policy that if you can measure it, you can bill it, right? So it really helps you add more monetary value to it. The third thing is you can customize KPIs, right, with automation. So you can actually offer customized KPIs to the end customers, which is what the customers are really looking at because of the flexible SLAs that you can offer per industry or per customer, right? The second area is obviously the new radio. I think the new radio is something which telcos are still looking at, from the business case standpoint, economic value addition standpoint. But I think it gives you that flexibility to steer traffic and use AI ML capabilities on new innovative radio functions to basically enhance the quality of experience, right? The third area is the multi-access edge computing, because that becomes very relevant. And as Vishant rightly pointed out, right, they've already virtualized around 90 locations. And I know most telcos globally, and especially in India, are leveraging the real estate which they have to build these edge and aggregation clouds, the data centers there, moving network functions there. But you could actually use these edge clouds as launch pads for the vertical industry partners, and the fourth and the most important technical aspect is also the security, because security is very, very dear to the enterprise. And, so you will obviously need to build security around physical aspects for your next sites, network security, and also protecting the data integrity, right? On the software aspects, I think you will need to, as Randeep rightly pointed out, build the cloud talent, right? So cloud talent becomes very critical, which is there today with the hyperscalers, and telcos are really building that. You could also, the second softer aspect is around creating valuable partnerships, whether it comes with SI partners, whether it comes with these vertical industry partners, getting the revenue models right, the go-to-market strategy right, dividing the costs equally, and also the around who holds the intellectual property. So I think these are the complexities. If you can get them resolved, you could efficiently use 5G to cater to a completely different aspect of customers, which is the enterprise, and add more value to them, and also create more value for the telcos themselves, moving away from what consumer services could give, which we all know is anyways challenged both from a revenue and a profitability standpoint. Thanks.
Thank you, Vikram. And David, we talked about the enterprise side, but this pandemic has actually shown us that even the consumers in the last 6 months we've discovered are using. There's like a digital transformation already happening. E-health, e-commerce, so many things which were not existing or were there but not so much used are now. So the demand from the networks, the demand from the operators is going to change very fast. How do you think networks of the future are catering or will cater to this change?
So firstly, as you say, COVID has had a massive impact on the demand for e-health, e-education, definitely remote education occurring across the globe, in fact, and very particularly in India. So the first issue that's got to be challenged on these things or solved is basic connectivity, and fixed wireless access really gives a rapid vehicle and cost-efficient vehicle to help enable that connectivity. But quite quickly, I think people who have experienced either the remote consultations in health or remote education, you realise that best effort connectivity really isn't good enough. You need to start having a bit more determinism in your connectivity. So you need a network that's not just best effort like the public internet is today, but also can guarantee certain performance characteristics, delay, etc. It's no good a teacher stood up in front of a classroom, virtual, and some people are streaming and buffering, some aren't. It destroys the whole experience. So we move to a more deterministic type behaviour. But then, say, taking education example, we see a very clear path to a more immersive education, where you can use virtual reality to teach pupils and engage the pupils in an amazing way, using mixed media type formats to take pupils to places they could never ever visit. And when that might be in the classroom or it might be at home. But you can really start seeing that a need for a VR type capabilities. And at that point, delay or motion to photon, as it's called, is absolutely key. It must be less than 12 milliseconds latency, but ideally needs to be less than 7 milliseconds. And similarly, in eHealth, you start with vitals monitoring, you move through to remote consultations. I think some of us already have, and you start going forward. You envisage even remote emergency assistance, and of course, this places a lot of emphasis on the reliability and the security of the network. So, with these types of services plus normal public internet, you've got a complete, diverse range of service types. Then, if you fold in the enterprise ones we mentioned before, you see a very, very neat, absolutely key need to have a toolkit of resources that allow you to build one network, but slice it in a way that meets each service need. That is realistically the only way to build this network efficiently. You can't build a separate network for everyone. So for me, the new network is going to have a toolkit of capabilities to slice the network, and we move from best effort connectivity to deterministic connectivity.
Thanks, David. I think very well said. Slicing, of course, will play an extremely important role. And coming back to you, Randeep, I know you've been very vocal and very passionate about AI and ML as a topic. Can you give us some examples that people can relate to how AI and ML in the future is going to play a significant role? And I've heard you and seen your interviews in other places where you've been quite vocal about that. So some examples how that can be used in this transformation.
Yeah, Amit. It's not only in future, I would say in present world also, at least in Airtel, we are seeing that AI is really impacting. Let's start with various legs of building a network, right from planning, from building capacities predicting where the capacity will be needed so that you can build in advance before the customer experience goes bad. And if we talk about new site planning, you can actually use multiple layers of information from earlier only population data to a lot of other datas to actually face read the map and see the population dwelling, the roof types, the road types, and kind of generate economic index of the area before you roll out a site. So this is all possible with the, you can say, AI techniques which are available. With machine learning, you can start predicting many things which we will have to be, which we have to build in future. Let's talk about deployment. Now, deployment, earlier there used to be a person who is going to install it, power it on, and then there used to be a person who used to configure it, somebody used to automate it, and then it used to continue for automation for some period of time. But now the way we roll out our networks is zero touch. You just connect it, it is fed the the configuration remotely, and all the automation happens through you can say closed loop process. So that's another way which will be even more mature when we come to 5G. I was talking to one of our partner operators outside India, where they said when they had to choose the sector, should the 5G sector be a 90-degree sector or a 60-degree sector? Now there is two ways. You can go and put it and see whether it works or not, or you can actually have a machine learned model which will predict, this is the traffic on 4G, what should be the sector configuration for this 5G sector. Imagine the power of it. You can optimize your capex if you were able to really precisely calculate what you need to put, where you need to put. Let's talk about operations. Right now, traditional operations is you see an alarm, you call somebody, he goes and fixes it. How about if you were able to predict an alarm using the history, and you are able to predict an alarm, and then if you do a closed loop and you can do a self-heal, that means you are able to fix it. I'm telling you, this is not fiction. We do it today. Yes, I am not able to predict all the alarms, but there are certain set of alarms which gives you like a telltale sign before hardware goes down. So you can use these telltale signs and predict. I can tell you, we can even predict that this SIM is going to go down because SIM does send some messages if it is not able to connect the network. So if we were to put all this into learned algorithms and come into predictive network maintenance and then a self-heal loop, somewhere it may be possible, somewhere it may not be possible. But prediction already gives you a headroom to head start to go and fix it before it goes down. So we'll need a lot of tools, but more than tools, I said the workforce, the leadership, the people who do will need a digital mindset. They will need to come out of a traditional way of running networks and start running networks in an automated way and not be afraid of a job loss, but look at job creation with these new opportunities happening. And you started this whole talk by saying what all has India contributed to the world telco. I believe that with the Indian brains, so much of software for almost all OEMs are being written here. So if these automation use cases are really brought in India and we can contribute to the world, believe me, this is one big contribution to the world by India. If we talk about 5G specifically, there will be a RIC there. In RIC, there will be many use cases in an O-RAN atmosphere. So if in an O-RAN atmosphere, the use cases or the IPR of that use cases are coming from Indian, you can say, engineers, then this is another value which will create in creating these automated networks. So in my view, this is the only way to go. This is not like good to have. It is a must have, especially with the complicated networks we have. And we have these all, complicated IP optic networks, long haul, short haul, like they was mentioning the front haul and the this thing all will merge. Network will become very flat. So in that case, automation, digitization is not, it's not, you can say a choice. It's a must have. And we all should kind of start building it now.
Thanks, Randeep. And I can tell you as a user, if I am called by my operator and said that there is going to be an outage or there is something, or even if I call for a problem and this is the problem, this is when it's going to get fixed. It's so much of a delight for a customer to be able to get that information. And actually, some of the things that you are talking about sounds like magic, but magic is happening in the networks of tomorrow. So yeah, that's a fact. Vishant, coming to you. All this also requires, you did touch upon in your earlier talk, on the entire processes, the organization structure, how we need to change ourselves, as these networks evolve. So your thoughts on what needs to be done on that side?
Amit, so many of the things that Randeep said, I would agree with it wholeheartedly. I think the future is about much more automation, much more about what I call augmented intelligence instead of artificial intelligence. Uh, and I think that for me, it's a very important distinction because while we will be doing a lot of AI stuff, we're always going to have human beings, people uh, there, and all of these technologies are going to be there to assist. So things like zero touch provisioning, we've done it. We've been doing it in our transport networks now for a while. It's going to come in other domains as well. Machine learning and AI, I think, are absolutely critical and essential if you're going to run a very large scale cloud, which we all have to for our networks. And especially if it's a decoupled software and hardware and a universal cloud, then the only real way to do it, manage it, is through AI ML. And in order to do all that, I think you need to have a proper set of understanding of your vision, right? So the vision has to be very clear about what you're building for in order for a lot of these things like AI ML to work. And those capabilities, I think, are going to be a journey. Again, I'll use the word journey. It is not going to happen all overnight. It is a journey for the next 2-3 years while we develop a lot of these AI ML capabilities. I think the point about India being the software factory of the world is incredibly important and critical, because as we start to open up our networks, whether it is in the core, radio, or transport, software becomes much more valuable. The value shifts much more towards that software, and India has a great possibility here to become the software leader of the world in the telecom space. And there is so much more value that we can create as an industry. And India is probably the most challenging environment to operate in because we are a very large country. We have many on the ground challenges. We have many environmental challenges. And if you develop software to cope with all of that, I think it will work anywhere in the world. So I think it's a great opportunity for us and for India to contribute to the rest of the world and the development of this industry. I think, Amit, what is also very important is to realize that our industry is now going to become the base for a lot of the other industries. As I said earlier, we are a horizontal. And what that means is we used to have in industry, for example, very traditional things like concepts like, well, we used to have maintenance windows and downtimes, yeah, from midnight or to 5 a.m. or whatever it is that your company chose. But we used to have like those 5-6 hours where we could say the network can be, will be maintained and it does, we can do things with it. I think if you are the base of the digital economy of this country, you do not have that luxury. Your network has to continuously operate and you will have to make continuous changes. So CI/CD, yeah, continuous implementation, continuous deployment is the norm. So the CI/CD capabilities development is the next big thing that we are working on, and that requires things like AI and ML to come in, but it also requires a very different way of thinking about our own networks and what they're doing. So we have to start thinking much more about services that we run on top of those networks. And if we have decoupled our networks, which we have in V to a large extent, our core is completely desegregated now. So that means we buy our hardware separately and all of our software separately, and we have it integrated with a third-party SI. We are now doing the same things in the transport. So when you do that in the transport in the IP layer, and you start to deploy these white box routers and you decouple that software, getting that slicing to work the way you want to do it, you can maximally drive the value out of as a business. There's an opportunity here, I think, for all our companies, because I think there are things you can do with that slicing to marry it much closer to the end user logic and marry it much more closer to your business priorities. And those things will create many more capabilities even in our 4G networks. We don't need to wait for 5G to come up with a full set of slicing capabilities. I think there are things we can do with 4G, with slicing, that will start generating revenue very quickly. And for that, I think things like white box routers are also going to be very, very important. Similarly, on the Open RAN, I think it is going to be very important for India to have an Open RAN system, not only to lower costs, but also again to create many more capabilities. When you open up that RAN, you can do so much more caching, content provisioning, etc., closer to the edge for the customer. So things like facial recognition, things like caching, things like SASE services, all of those things become much more possible with the edge cloud. And that's what we are seeing with our edge cloud that we have rolled out. So many more business opportunities become available to us. And all of the things we are doing, to some extent, while we're doing them for the first time in the world in telecom, it is not the first time in the world for any industry. Many of these things have been done by hyperscalers in their businesses. So there are things that are available. There are methodologies which are available from the hyperscalers that we can really import and customize for our businesses, really to create a world-class leading universal cloud edge capability in our network.
Thanks, Vishant. And I think that last point was very, very appropriate, that we can learn from the world who has done it already and build our skills and our capabilities accordingly. Moving on, Shyam, I think we have not touched upon use cases, which may be 5G or even today 4G. I mean, Vishant said today we can do a lot, and all of you agree that we can do a lot with 4G also. But the use cases which in 5G, which probably can help in this urban-rural divide, or actually create value for our companies, which are also then contributing to lower cost.
Amit, I think this last 6 months of pandemic has actually given us a great insight around the world of the future and the world and the responsibility of telcos. Vishant actually alluded to the fact that we are a horizontal supporting this whole digital world, which will evolve itself in the coming decades. So one of the first things which I'd like to highlight is let us also understand that from when we moved from 3G to 4G and now to 5G, the service suite is now moving into three fundamental contributors. First is the connectivity, which has been the underlying part of any telco business. But moving on from connectivity, I think two more things which are panning out very clearly is collaboration and productivity. And when we talk about collaboration, we are talking about a multiple set of people and industry coming together either directly or indirectly and kind of doing their job in a much better and a much efficient manner. And then the productivity part of it, which again can be broken up into what I call as assisted productivity and enhanced productivity. And assisted productivity is where this whole tool set or this whole service suite can make your life easier. Look at a surgeon or look at an educator or look at a marketeer and look at the way they can go forward, use the whole digital value chain to understand, use, process the data faster, come to decision points faster, get their reach extended across geographies. So this is assisted productivity. And the enhanced productivity is when you can get into the tools doing the job themselves without any manual intervention. And this is about drones, security, cameras, and sensors moving all across the length and breadth of the country. And if you then map into the big Industry 4.0 revolution that is happening now, you can very clearly see that the torchbearers here, education is very clearly a big one in a country like us, which is so devoid of the right set of talent to be connected for right set of educators to the students, the sharing of content across geographies, the conducting of collaborative sessions across geographies and locations. So education is definitely a big one. Health, I think I can and none of us can even undermine the requirement of a very, very digitally connected health ecosystem, which is not only enhanced from a digital perspective, but which also extends the ability of technology to make those decisions much more faster, much more right. And this whole hyperscale concept, which all of us have been talking about, I think comes to play here, wherein multiple petabytes of real-time data getting processed at an individual granular level, decisions being made. This is happening today at Jio. For example, I'll just give you the basic connectivity example. World does today close to 50 exabytes of data in a month. The mobile data consumption across the world, slightly less than that actually, basis most of the reports, 47, 48. And we at Jio are already ahead of 10% of that number at 5 exabytes every month. So our affinity as a country, as a society to hyperscale is not new. Our ability to understand and use this to our go forward decision making process, go forward productive enhancement techniques is also not new. But what will become new is the way now each of these service suites will be sliced. And we spoke about islands of connectivity, we spoke about islands of services, we spoke about agriculture service suite, for example, and that is, I think, one of the biggest use case, looking at the dependence of the agriculture in our GDP. How do you enhance that, right from weather forecasting to right set of crops to right set of contribution from source to sink, from retail to outlets. That kind of contribution is going to get big. Schools and hospitals are definitely going to get connected. The other big use case, in addition to these verticals I spoke about, is the classic digitization of the industry. Manufacturing is big example. Or let's say getting a network for an enterprise, which is now getting big in some of the use cases in Europe, where you actually dedicate a 5G network for an industry itself, or for a factory itself. And imagine that happening for our automobile industries, for our manufacturing sessions, for our agro business cases. It would be so much more efficient that without having to depend on any outside in kind of support, the use case itself embeds their own bespoke use cases owned by their own network systems deployed by the operator, and then they become so much self-dependent and so much productive, because now they know that this network is dedicated to them. This network is going to get customized for every new use case, every evolved use case they need to use it. That will actually exponentially enhance the productivity of not only an individual from a connectivity and collaboration perspective, but also from a industry or from a overall enterprise ecosystem, wherein now they get to see a phase of the network which is not one size fits all, but what they need, how they need, when and where they need. And that is all possible when we are able to amalgamate all of these capabilities: the access network dedicated and sliced for a customer, the connectivity network which is evolving, which is aware, which is real time, and then finally the overall orchestration of the services on a big data system, which is already being done, but which now gets very seamlessly extended towards an end-to-end 5G ecosystem.
Yeah, absolutely right. And I think that leads me to David, to a question for you. Shyam, we talked about the service suites, and we talked about how service creation and assurance and optimization will be extremely, extremely critical and important in the future of network. So your thoughts on how that can happen?
So, I agree with that. I mean, it really is about the service creation, ease of automation, rapid assurance. It's all about, for me, it's about breaking down the digital divide, making sure that everybody has access to this technology, and then providing the advanced connectivity to enable cities, regions, the whole of India, in fact, to win on the global marketplace. And to achieve this relies on the ability to provide cost-efficient connectivity rapidly to the right places within the country. And Randeep hit the nail right on the head when he said automation is fundamental to allow this to happen. With all this complexity in the network, in this world of dynamic mobile type connectivity with SDN and NFVs, flexibly mixing PNFs and VNFs, instantiating them wherever and whenever required, to make this cost efficiency and to give connectivity where it's required, you can only really achieve this with automation. And that with the right level of automation, you can really drive connectivity across the country and now allowing everyone to gain the advantage of the connectivity that's been offered by 5G. In addition, I would add that analytics is also key to this. As the first part of the AI journey, you need the right analytics to monitor the performance of the network and the services running on it, and then to dynamically adjust the network to keep the services being delivered at the optimal level. And if there is, unfortunately, no network degradation or outages, you can react, as Randeep said again, many times proactively in advance of the failure or degradation. You can react, change the network to make sure you keep that reliability and that network up and going. So for me, with the right level of rapid service creation and newly dynamic services across that network, making sure that the network's up and running all the time, but then with the right level of optimization so that you don't need to over-provision the network, you can cost efficiently deliver services across the whole of your country. You really empower your country and your regions in that competitive environment that they're fighting, and you really are able to take full advantage of this. So automation enables the instrumentation that's delivered in the programmable infrastructure, and that is required for 5G to fully empower a country to move forwards. That's my thoughts on.
Thank you. So I think we are running almost on time and little short of time. So Vikram, quickly to you. SDN NFV we know is a big part of this journey, and you are an expert on that. So your thoughts on how much and how that is going to play a role in this journey?
So Amit, I think SDN and NFV have been key pillars of telco network transformation right from the beginning of 4G. I think SDN is the key foundation to make networks more programmable, as Shyam had rightly pointed out in the beginning. And SDN allows the environment to have the white box routers, what Vishant was talking about, right? And same thing is with NFV, right? It's allowing you to virtualize more network functions, pulling them out of fixed hardware, proprietary hardware, and moving on to COT servers. With the modernization of powerful processors, storage and switching fabrics, right? You can actually move more network functions now to be VNFs and even cloud native going forward, right? And the only thing I think is that telcos are building VNFs or NFV clouds more vertically stacked, rather than having a horizontal cloud where they could build in the IT functions along with the network core functions. But I think with the advent of edge and moving more network functions to the edge, they'll be building the Mano along with the automation, which we've all been talking about. And that will really give the efficiencies of scale, what the value NFV and SDN could really bring, right? And that's why NFV and SDN, according to me, will continue to be key pillars of the telco transformation. Absolutely. Even as we move from 4G.
And in the end, Sandeep, if I can just, I can do this conclusion and summarization. But if this discussion you can summarize in, what are the top 3 things that we need to do in the networks of the future in order to make this journey transform?
Yeah, so first thing that I would say, I think there are a lot of things that were covered in terms of architecture, applications, AI, ML, lots of things. But I think I would just say that physical infrastructure innovation there also is important and critical. And part of this also is infrastructure sharing. So there a lot has been done in terms of fiber sharing, spectrum sharing. The models are there from in India, from US, from Brazil, and especially in the case of 5G, especially when you look at on the small cell and the 5G IoT macro layer. I think I read a study at McKinsey. Operators can save up to 40% of TCO in that area. So that infrastructure sharing is, I think, definitely important and critical aspect. And then third is build it once and build it right. That is what I will point about infrastructure, right? And the capabilities that, that if I have to sum up in again, there are 4 things that come to my mind: infrastructure, the architecture, that is with applications, the operating model, and the business model. and all four need to think holistically together to make it happen. And again, SIs, like us, play a significant role not only at the physical layer, at the virtual layer, at the all the way up to the cloud native layer to stitch these VNFs and CNFs together in a cloudified way to really get to value or customer experience from a services perspective. I think all of this is going to be critical. As again, summing it up, physical infrastructure sharing, operating model, architecture, as well as the business model. All four working together.
And before we end, in the end, I'll just ask all the three CTOs one common question in a short and crisp one-line answer or two-line answer. That with 5G happening, or as the networks migrate or transit to the path towards 5G, and what? So this is a softer question saying that what really you think is the highest or the biggest thing that 5G will bring either to your companies as a business or to the end consumer, according to you. So let me start with Vishant.
So I think 5G as a technology brings better latencies. So that creates many more kind of real-time applications as a possibility. Now there is a additional thing that 5G brings, which is ability to handle billions of devices in just being able to connect in parallel. So I think that is going to be important as India gets into a much more kind of IoT deployment across a suite of industries. I think that is another important benefit that will come with 5G. And then of course there's the spectrum. Now spectrum is the biggest thing, and I really think there are lessons to be learned here from Japan and China, who have looked at the spectrum and said, hey, this is a base layer for the digital economy of the future, and we don't want to suck money out of the industry up front. And what we want to do is have the industry be able to use this spectrum to create a very strong, robust network and capabilities on which all of the other industries will build value. So therefore, spectrum can be given for free. I think that is something worth considering for this country.
Thanks. Randeep, your thoughts?
I will take a little different pitch on it. I think first of all, for India itself, like we see this COVID, we were not used to virtual meetings. We were not used to virtual collaborations. We always wanted physical. And the digital transformation, whether it is about a consumer recharging digitally or us doing meetings virtually, I think we were not very comfortable doing it. But pandemic kind of triggered us into thinking like this. I think 5G will trigger India into thinking faster into the digital India dream. And I think that I hope will become a trigger which will unleash the power of digitization, not across the telco, but across all domains of industries. One of my colleagues mentioned it can be manufacturing, it can be mining, it can be BFSI, but all industries will get an impetus because of this. Suddenly some new thing is available which will transform the way they run their business, bring efficiencies and new possibilities. Coupled with this is telcos, who are today used to connectivity revenue as the largest part of their revenue, will also see capabilities and of other new revenue streams coming in, where they can be a deeply embedded partner to the industries in helping this industry 4.0 or digital India dream. I think these two things will happen as 5G starts gathering. It could be starting with the POC networks and subsequently real commercial, but I think it will definitely trigger a faster momentum towards digital India. So that's what I see for 5G doing to India.
Shyam?
So again, more or less similar with what Vishant and Randeep said, but just rephrasing it. One is very clearly capacity and capability. Capacity from a spectrum and type of services perspective, and capability from designing, the ability to design specific services. But more importantly, I think going forward, the way world is getting digital, I think it would be one of the underlying threats across the life of human beings, life of machines, and life of industries and entrepreneurs going forward, wherein it would be unimaginable to live, to survive, and to work and to enhance without a digital platform. And this digital platform will be provided by 5G in total as the connectivity, capability, and service partnership.
Thank you. And I think on that positive note, the dream of digital India, being fulfilled with 5G as a technology, and India playing a much bigger role in the world in not only network affordability, but giving them the software, the IPRs, the future automation that the world will follow. With that, I would like to thank you all, gentlemen, for being on this panel. At least for me, it was a fantastic discussion and a learning. I hope our audience will also like and enjoy this discussion. Thank you very much for joining, and have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
In the age of networks, everyday tasks are global events. Remember when a concert was just for the fans in the stadium? Now it gets shared out to millions, thousands of miles away. The biggest show on TV isn't just on TV, and getting in shape means everyone knows how fit we are. Yeah. So with thousands of new devices talking to the network every minute, providers have never been under more pressure to deliver. In the midst of all the complexity, it feels like a race for survival. There's a lot of talk that the key to survival is network automation, that automation equals intuition, which it literally doesn't, and that a self-driving network is enough to expel complexity if you're not going very far. At Ciena, we don't fear complexity, we welcome it, because we believe in a bigger idea, something we call the adaptive network. It's a unique combination of automation and intelligence guided by human insight that's built on a highly scalable, programmable infrastructure. It's a network that's set up to figure things out faster, grab hold of new technology, and keep growing and changing just like we do, all with the most open architecture and flexibility in the business. That's how we build the adaptive network. Because in this race, survival of the fittest is survival of the most adaptive. Get ready to adapt.
It's been said, 2 are better than 1, stronger than 1, greater than 1, and more potent than 1. It's true, 2 are better than 1 when the 2 act as 1. And together, we 2 are 1. Ribbon and ECI, one team.
Thank you for the insightful discussion. I hope all of you found the discussion informative and enjoyable. With that, I take your leave, but please leave your comments and feedback on the video of this session, which will be available on the LiveMint and India Mobile Congress social media handles. We will be back with the 5th episode of this 8-episode series soon. Till then, stay safe and take care.